In this segment, we're going to talk about the need for establishing a strong fundraising infrastructure. Now, whether you're a large congregation undertaking a multi-year capital campaign or a smaller school looking to create an annual giving program, this is a critical step to ensure the effectiveness of your fundraising efforts. Without this strong foundation in place, fundraising will be more difficult and leave you open to making critical mistakes. We're going to talk about 4 things: database and fundraising software, the basics of gift receipting, policies and procedures manuals, and tips for what to do if your fundraising staff is comprised entirely of volunteers. First, let's talk about creating a database. You may be wondering if fundraising software is a necessary expense, and sometimes it's tough to understand how spending money on fundraising software can help you raise more money. Good fundraising software allows us the ability to record donor information such as preferred name, current address, and giving history. But it can also allow us to generate reports more quickly, save money by more effectively communicating with members about projects that match their interests, and increase retention and pledges by generating automatic reminders. Fundraising products vary from free online tools to high-end solutions with complex features and a steep price tag as well. It can be difficult to know where to begin. Your first step should be to meet with all those who will be expected to use the software and make a list of what you want that software to do. What features do you absolutely need? Don't buy more than you need. For example, it's kind of cool to be able to send tweets or mobile texts from within the interface, but do you really need to? The following are issues to consider when creating and prioritizing that must-have list. Customization. Look for software with easy customization that allows you to tailor the database to your needs. But don't confuse unique with useful. The software with the greatest ability to customize may be confusing to your users or unnecessarily expensive. Recommendations. Speak with others about what system they use and would recommend. Be sure to get references from comparable organizations. Is it user-friendly? Can staff members and volunteers easily learn how to enter data? You want it to be intuitive. Complex software requires your team to have more computer knowledge, not less. Cost. Does the software fit into your budget, both now and in the future? Think about all the costs associated. Include things like software license, data conversion, installation, monthly or yearly fees, and support. Security. Since you're dealing with donor information, security must be a consideration. When considering a product, know what security measures are in place to protect you and your donors. And finally, do take your time. A database can be a substantial purchase, so do your due diligence before making a decision. Now that we've discussed how to navigate the process of procuring fundraising software, let's talk about recording, receipting, and thanking donors. Suppose a check for $10,000 made out to the capital campaign is given by John and Jane Smith. How is this gift processed? It's important to have a written plan in place. Among other things, it should address who enters gifts into the database and how is it recorded, who issues a gift receipt and when, and the process for notifying others of this gift. Let's go back to John and Jane Smith's gift. How will their $10,000 gift be entered into the software? Will you record the $10,000 gift under John's account or Jane's, or create one account for the family? Is a system in place to code this gift as not just restricted to the capital campaign, but to a specific part of the campaign? These may seem like small issues, but incorrect data entry can cause serious problems. When will the receipt be mailed? Aim to send a receipt within 48 hours of receiving the gift. Some organizations think to save money by only issuing one gift receipt for all giving for the year. And we need to rethink this approach. Donors expect a receipt, acknowledging their gift in a timely manner. An exception can be donors giving on a weekly basis. However, these donors should be notified of your gift receipt process, and a plan should be in place for other ways in which you'll communicate with them. And don't waste that receipt letter. Too often these are dry, generic letters that don't really say anything. Tell the Smiths what's being accomplished through their giving. Talk about success. Update them on progress, especially in capital campaigns. And pay attention to the details. Make sure you address the donor correctly. Do not write a letter to John if he prefers Joe. And do not address a thank you note only to Mr. John Smith when Mrs. Jane Smith is an equal giving partner. And finally, who is responsible for thanking the Smiths in a timely manner? The gift receipt is a nice start, but what about a personal note from the campaign chair? Thanking donors is one of the most important and rewarding parts of fundraising. Sadly, it's also one of the most overlooked. Now that we've covered acquiring a database and some basic receipting guidelines, let's discuss the Policies and Procedures Manual. A manual is critical, especially in volunteer-driven efforts. A good manual will help an organization avoid serious misunderstandings, stay aligned with church and conference expectations, and even avoid potential legal challenges. As you're creating your manual, it's important to check with your local conference office before moving forward. Conferences may have additional resources, guidelines, or even existing policies. This step can save you time and ensure you are complying with conference expectations. A sample of some policies to include in your manual are gift entry and tracking. That's that written plan we discussed a few minutes ago, as well as a plan for pledges. How are reminders sent? How are they tracked? Donor recognition. How and when will donors at various giving levels be recognized? Gift acceptance. Are individuals or businesses from whom you will not accept gifts written down? As long as a gift was legally acquired, does it matter how the money was made? What types of gifts will you accept? Are you prepared to accept gifts in kind? Naming policies. This should consider both the size appropriate for various naming opportunities, as well as guidelines for who can be considered. Does the individual have to be a member of your faith? Policies regarding government funding. Will you accept government grants? Here it's important to check with conferences for existing policies. Database access. Who has access to view, enter, and change your data? Again, this is just a sampling of some items which you may want to include. Additional items could include job descriptions, restricted gifts, publicity, and event planning guidelines. And finally, I want to talk about what to do when your fundraising staff is a team of volunteers. Much can be done without the assistance of a full-time fundraiser or consultant. So what elements make a volunteer-driven effort successful? Among other things, structure. A volunteer-led project requires more planning, not less. All of these steps we've discussed thus far become even more important. Job descriptions. While this may seem to be taking all the fun out of volunteering, it's an important step which helps volunteers be more effective. Without this guidance, a volunteer team of 15 will have 15 often very different ideas about what they should be doing. A good recruitment plan. When recruiting volunteers to a project, first determine what skills you need, then think of people to fit those roles. Too often we do the reverse. Of course, a comfort asking people for contributions is a key skill set, but what else? Do you plan to seek funding from grant awarding organizations? Then you'll need someone with the ability to write effectively. Empowered volunteers. Foster ownership among volunteers. Don't skimp on orientation and training. Use it as an opportunity to discuss policies, procedures, goals, and priorities. Find out what your volunteers need to be successful and include that. Remember, good volunteers are knowledgeable volunteers. Knowing limitations. Smart volunteers know when it's time to call in the experts. This is especially true when considering a capital campaign and the need for things like a feasibility study. Communication. Regularly communicate with volunteers. Updating each other on goals, progress, and challenges is an important step. Great meetings. Most of us feel like the worst part of volunteering is meetings. Make your meetings strategic, planning and brainstorming sessions. Use this time wisely, and volunteers leave energized, not exhausted. We've now discussed the need for fundraising software, some suggestions for the selection process, the basics of gift recording and receipting, ideas for what should go into your policies and procedures manual, and what makes volunteer efforts successful. I hope you now have a better understanding of what goes into fundraising infrastructure and feel empowered with the knowledge to begin implementing one that's right for you.